Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take on this Wednesday morning. Really can't call it hump day because of the fact that we didn't have Monday, so we're not going to go that direction. But I will say it's interesting. It's great to see you in the markets. When you look at yesterday's markets, very, very interesting. Just because of the fact that we started out the day relatively flat. It looked like we were going to have a kind of a nothing start to the day, and before we knew it, we were down 100 points, then 200 points, then 300 points, then 400 points on the Dow, only to reverse that and at least come back a little bit off of those lows to finish down a couple of hundred points. But the NASDAQ did a little bit something more than that. The NASDAQ was started off pretty strong. It kind of eased back, pulled back relatively early into the early afternoon, late morning. And then we started this acceleration to the upside, actually finishing up about 24 points yesterday. So that, we talk about this all the time, some of the divergences, some of the markets and how things are moving. And yesterday it was about big cap tech. That was really what was forcing the markets to the upside, holding them in the NASDAQ, that outperformance. Now, on the other side of things, there was some definite pressure coming from energy. Energy was down about 3% or more throughout the session. So that was certainly a pressure. Financials down about 1.5%. You also look over at materials, and you could see where some of this was happening, what was really affecting the markets, especially early on, as we started to make that move back up to finish only down a couple of hundred points. But technology driving the NASDAQ, absolutely. Some of those consumer discretionary names also that sort of squeeze into that NASDAQ front as well. But getting back to the because I think it's very important to look at what's happening with volatility. So with volatility, we moved up near that 18 level, then we suddenly started to get that pullback, and we pulled all the way back towards the 16s. We closed up still about 9%, but about 16 and a half or thereabouts where we closed. So still a little bit higher than we'd been. Obviously, last week we know we had some volatilities that were actually pushing down. We had some 14s even that were hitting, but we sure did have a lot of volume yesterday. I talked about the volume going into Friday, thought it'd be a lot lower. It wasn't. It continued to sustain very high levels. Yesterday, coming back, a lot of folks getting back in the saddle and all. Volumes, once again, really impressive. 40 plus million contracts yesterday again. So it's just really, truly amazing to see where these volumes continue to come up and lift up, especially when you're looking for something that might be a little bit of a pullback. Now, that being said, what were some of the leaders? Apple, certainly. We talk about big cap tech, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but big cap tech, certainly the driving force. 2.8 million contracts yesterday for Apple. Tesla, about 1 million contracts. Amazon, 800,000 contracts, which Amazon does not normally have those kinds of volumes. But we did point out early on, that was one of those names in the big cap tech category that was hitting with unusual very early in the session. We had the big four right out of the gate. We also got to throw out this as well. AMC, there's still a lot of volume there. NEO, we're seeing it in Clove. We're seeing it in Virgin Galactic, a lot of those names not in that upper tier right now, but in that top 10 for sure in terms of where we're seeing some of those volumes. So I keep mentioning old cap tech. Yesterday, what was the driving force? Certainly it stood out was Apple. You look at Salesforce, Amazon, Netflix, all having a pretty good day. What wasn't having a very good day at all was when you look over at these Chinese names. Now, we've been highlighting this and we've been talking about this a little bit more, and we're seeing a lot more being discussed on television, financial television, a lot of coverage there. But when you look across at many of those names, really having a really hard time as of yesterday. JD, Baidu, NetEase, Trip.com, you throw in Pinduoduo. I mean, across the board, you look at some of these Chinese names and they were struggling yesterday, along with a lot of those beta energy names that we bring up all the time. Now, we bring that up because I don't want to say that in such a way that people try to interpret when you say beta, these things are rocketing to the upside. They are, but they also can move just as fast, if not faster, to the downside at times as well. So when we say beta, that's just the kind of movement that you get, and that very violent movement, especially when you start to see stocks that are trading at a 3 or even higher beta. Those are the names that are the ones that are really moving at a really incredible pace. Now, today, really interesting day in terms of, again, how we started off the day and where we are now. So early in the day, the NASDAQ looked like it was going to rip to the upside, and it was holding. It was up about 90 points in the pre-market. By the time we get to the opening, we started to see a little bit of a fade, but not too bad. Still up 50, 60 points. Then we were still holding on 55 points, 40 points. Next thing you know, we were really, really starting to struggle to even get into positive or stay into positive territory. I'm taking a quick look right now. We are now presently down about 23 points. So we've gone from literally up, call it very close to 100 points, to now in negative territory. Dow, sort of the same idea. The Dow started off a little bit of pressure in the pre-markets. We started to get back into it. I think when all the names started really starting to trade with a lot more liquidity, we saw that move to the upside. You see the Dow was up over 100 plus points very early on, and then suddenly we started to lose a little bit of that and lost a little bit more. We were looking like now somewhere closer to about 80 or 100 points to the downside. So we're seeing a fairly aggressive flip. Now, yesterday, the 10-year was something that certainly everybody was focused on. You take a look at the 10-year, everybody was concerned about the upside. Hey, what if we get to 2%? What if we get to here? What if we do? Well, the reality is we actually were going in the other direction. And that partially is what was really kind of propelling a lot of what, or at least the interpretation of that, was why some of those growth or tech names were really working so well to the upside, why financials had so much pressure on them, along with other parts of the market. I mentioned energy and how much pressure was there. So volatility, at least a little while ago, we were looking still in the low 16s. We're probably somewhere right now, I'm not looking at it as I speak, but we're looking somewhere probably between 1630 and somewhere closer towards 17, I would guess, right now. Crude, we are well off of those overnight numbers where we had crude trading 77, then 76, 75. Here we are now today trading in the 73s. Bitcoin continues to be a lot less volatile than it had been, although early on it had a little bit of a lift to the upside and trading right around that 34,700. Again, in this range that we called about a 33,000 to 35,000 range. You can even squeeze it down a little bit more from there. But we aren't seeing nearly the kind of volatility that we had been seeing in Bitcoin, and it's been settling back. And that's something that I think is worth noting, just to keep an eye on and see if that's going to be some sort of a level or a trend, at least in the short term, from compared to what we were seeing where we had incredible volatility in the Bitcoin. So today, materials, technology, consumer discretion, all of those look pretty decent, at least early on. Energy, financials, not so much early on. Those were some of the weights to the marketplace. So when we look at technology, we look once again, we look at those same names. Early on yesterday, I mentioned there were 4 names right out of the gate that were just hitting. It was Apple, it was Amazon, it was Google. We had some great option activity there, very, very bullish. We had some follow through this morning a little bit as well. And NVIDIA and Amazon were the 2 names that we chose for some of those unusual option activities to highlight. Absolutely exploded yesterday. Early today, right out of the gate, moving once again. But this is also why we always talk about discipline. As a matter of fact, social media, Twitter account, I was going back and forth with a lot of different folks who were saying, hey, that's an unbelievable move. You know, when you look at Amazon, it was trading underneath 3,600, made that move just after they bought the 3,600 calls, and then rocketed up through 3,700. Well, when you get moves like that and they're that fast, I think oftentimes people just lose sight of things, and sometimes discipline does have to come into play. We always talk about this. You've got to have a plan when you go in, and what are the where do you got to pull the cord when things are going bad? When do you need to at least trim when things are going very well? So that's part of the discipline that we talk about all the time, and that's the approach that we always try to give anybody in Market Rebellion. We just hammer on that topic time and time again. I try to say that oftentimes on CNBC, and I'm saying it here. Discipline is the key for a lot of the success that you might have when you're in the marketplace. So today, even more activity, as I say, in Apple, in Amazon, and also shifting over a little bit, some of the fintech. So you got a little technology, but the financial tech. Take a look at PayPal and Square. We also had some option activity in there. So I'm going to start off actually with CCL, Carnival Cruise. That's the unusual. It's trading right around 25.20. We had 6,000 of the July 23rd expiring. So you got a little bit of time. It's not Friday at least. So you got a little bit of time going out in the future. The 27 strike calls, 27 cents to 36 cents. And again, 6,100 of those calls being purchased. So that stood out right out of the gate. And PayPal. And I mentioned PayPal and Square are two of the names that we'd seen hitting today. PayPal stood out for me, and here's why. 4,400 of Friday's expiring, July 9th, the 300 calls. The stock was just beneath 300 at the time, 297.44. Now, things can move very, very rapidly. We know that, but they paid about $1.10 to about $2.10 for those options. Again, 4,400 of those PayPals. Is it going to make that break up and break through that 300 level? Looks like somebody's putting a little bit of money down that says, we think by the time we get to the end of this week, Friday, that there's a very good chance that it could break through there. We'll see how that plays out. Folks, it's about discipline. It's about education. You want to know the derivatives markets. We've got great people here. There are a lot of books out there, but you do want to know what's going on in the derivatives markets because it can be a huge help to your portfolio as we all try to navigate very difficult markets all the time. Folks, have a great day of trading, and I'll see you tomorrow.